Action heroes make action movies look like a walk in the park. Amidst the pyrotechnics, stunts, and daredevil antics, audiences will be surprised to learn that many of their favorite films are chock full of collateral damage, bodily harm, and yes, body counts. So, ScreenRant is here to exhume the harrowing tales behind the 20 most dangerous movies ever made. The magic of cinema is truly a wondrous gift. What else can entertain, uplift, and inspire us so profoundly? It's powerful, alright, and deadly. Tom Cruise makes breaking his ankle look easy, but unless you're a seasoned stunt person, you don't see that much action. That's a major calculated risk that film productions face when they try daring stunt sequences. Sometimes the show goes right off the rails. A wide-eyed Malcolm McDowell as Alex had his dirty peepers stretched in the re-education scene in A Clockwork Orange. McDowell's eyes were anesthetized for comfort, and he tolerated 10 minutes of shooting, ample time to scratch his cornea. When the anesthesia wore off, the pain was like razors. And he was temporarily blinded, and several of McDowell's ribs were fractured in the humiliation scene, and he nearly drowned when a fellow gang member, now a policeman, got revenge on Alex by dunking his head in water. McDowell's ordeals might have turned any other actor off of acting for good, but he said that it was worth the agony and peril. The cast of The Wizard of Oz experienced all sorts of bad. Actors' unions and labor standards weren't particularly strong back in the 1930s, and exploitation was a loose term. Buddy Ebson was cast as the first Tin Man. Ebson would end up in an oxygen tent because the aluminum dust in his makeup severely poisoned him, and the fake snow sprinkled on the cast was made of asbestos, a known carcinogen that was also used in the Wicked Witch's broom and the Cowardly Lion's costume. Nevertheless, Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch, was severely burned twice while filming. From golden oldies to oldies, let's talk about the Expendables 3. Sylvester Stallone suffered a hairline fracture on his spine from a disastrous stunt. Surgeons fitted his back with a metal plate. Stallone said, "I usually grade the quality of the film by the intensity of the injury." But does the franchise title The Expendables refer to the cast? Maybe. Jason Statham ditched a truck off of a pier in the Black Sea after the brakes failed. Why is it always the brakes? The truck sank 60 feet, but Statham swam back to the surface unaided. It was a stroke of luck that the rest of the A-list cast weren't on board. Their heavy military gear would have weighed them down, and surely drowned. Water is soft. Unfortunately, it didn't cushion the blow in this colossal flop, Waterworld. Box office disappointment aside, Kevin Costner's passion project took on more than water. Co-stars Jeanne Tripplehorn and Tina Majorino were turfed into the sea, nearly drowning. Costner escaped death while strapped to a 40-foot ship's mast. A sea squall churned heavy water that he endured for 30 minutes. The stunt coordinator, Norman Howell, suffered the bends while surfacing from a deep dive. His embolism was a close call, but he still enjoys a successful career in stunts. Countless extras were also injured throughout the production, and that huge floating atoll set was nearly destroyed by a hurricane. Stunts are a main reason for behind-the-scenes danger. Triple X, starring Vin Diesel, was partially filmed in Prague in 2002. Harry O'Connor was a Navy SEAL and stunts veteran who died from a horrifying impact while working as aerial stunt coordinator and stunt double for Vin Diesel's character. In that predictable hokey parasailing scene, O'Connor was pulled by a speedboat, repelled down the cable onto a weird Flash Gordon submarine. O'Connor nailed the scene on the first attempt, but the second take would be O'Connor's last. He collided with a pillar on the Pulaski Bridge and broke his neck. Suspiciously, Triple X is O'Connor's only credit where he's uncredited. Harry O'Connor was 45 years of age when he passed. The Passion of the Christ wouldn't be Mel Gibson's cross to bear. That's what actors are for. Jim Caviezel gleefully accepted the role of Jesus despite Gibson's warning that, you'll never work in this town again, mate." He had to survive this film first. Caviezel was actually struck by lightning on the Sermon on the Mount sequence. "I lit up like a Christmas tree," Caviezel confessed. "Flames flickered out of my head and my body, frizzing my hair like Don King." John McElhaney, assistant director, checked on Caviezel when he was struck by lightning himself. And the flogging of Jesus scene went horribly awry because the actor's bad aim lashed Caviezel's back, missing the whipping post hidden from view. Caviezel's description of the pain was, "You can well imagine how POJC was when the actor missed that second time." The bucking bronco that has Jackass pummeled the cast like crash test dummies. It's amazing that most of these guys are still alive, but this ride was voluntary. Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, and company risked life and limb to satisfy their extreme urges and find fame and fortune. They earned it. What other bunch of dudes would ride exploding homemade rockets, get rammed by raging bulls, snort wasabi, or perform a stunt called alligator tightrope? The Jackass catalog of stunts and skits is staggering. In the first movie, Knoxville, Margera, Dunn, and Brandon DiCamillo drove maniacally around a golf course. The most dramatic spill flipped the cart, destroying it and almost snapping Knoxville's neck. Now don't try this at your country club. Mad Max 2: The Road Warrior boasted 200 stunts and was the most expensive Australian film made up to this point. Shot in the outback, they were days from civilization, a concern for cast and crew playing nitro-fueled chicken. Of the 80 picture cars used, almost half were demolished. A stuntman riding a motorcycle in the final tanker scene nearly wrecked himself. George Miller wanted one marauder to crash and flip over a wrecked car. He got his wish, but it nearly killed that stuntman. Days before the climatic oil tanker scene, Miller advised the stunt driver not to eat 12 hours before shooting, in case he had to be rushed to the ER for emergency surgery. Fortunately, that driver limped away relatively unscathed. What could go wrong while filming the cinematic adaptation to Homer's epic poem, The Iliad? The big-budget film Troy flexed its star power but sacrificed historical accuracy and committed a slew of continuity errors. But more importantly are the risks of en masse swordplay. Reenacting the spectacular Battle of Troy took a greater toll. A 35-year-old film extra, George Camilleri, injured his left ankle. He was rushed to the hospital, but sadly, Camilleri passed away 2 days later from a pulmonary thromboembolism, a known complication of leg trauma. Brad Pitt injured his Achilles tendon in the role of, you guessed it, Achilles. And it would seem that the production angered the gods because the shooting location was razed twice in 1 month by 2 hurricanes. Jackie Chan must love punishment. Never a pawn in the process, he's famous for charging into danger. His plethora of broken bones confirms Chan's berserker attitude. Although he could have used some body protection in 1986's Armor of God, Chan famously jumped into a tree and fractured his skull on a boulder below. The skull fracture almost ended his career and his life. And coincidentally, Jackie Chan is still hard of hearing out of one ear. On the set of Project A, Jackie Chan tempted fate when he was the quarry of a gang of criminals and fled onto a church clock tower. He fell from his precarious perch and fell 60 feet directly onto his head. For Ricardo Cornelius, Resident Evil: The Final Chapter became a morbid tragedy. A 35-year-old South African film technician had worked on the film for just 5 weeks after a year of unemployment. His job was to turn a platform supporting a heavy military Hummer. It fell and crushed Cornelius. His severe internal injuries claimed Cornelius a week before his 10-month wedding anniversary. Insult to injury followed when his wife was ghosted by production and Cornelius's colleagues as she sought closure. Mila Jovovich's stunt double, Olivia Jackson, had to be put into a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. Jackson collided with a camera crane that malfunctioned during a high-speed motorcycle scene, crushing half of her face and a horrible list of debilitating injuries like her amputated arm. This next one is a stunt anyone can try, although we definitely don't recommend it no matter how many coupons you have clogging your cheeseburger wallet. Morgan Spurlock in Super Size Me committed to a McDiet. For a complete month, Spurlock devoured 3 squares of only supersized meals. Spurlock took his before photos and had a full medical workup. Then cue the gluttony and sloth. Spurlock also mimicked the level of physical activity exercised by the average American and walked a whopping 5,000 steps a day. By month's end, he gained 24 pounds. His cholesterol level spiked, and on the 21st day, heart palpitations required urgent medical attention. The physician urged Spurlock to stop, risking grave complications, but Spurlock soldiered on. An incident could be so heinous that it's met with new regulation. John Landis, who directed the Twilight Zone the movie, violated California's child labor law. To film a chaotic battle scene, he hired 2 child actors, Micah Din Lee and Renee Sinyi Chin, to play Vietnamese peasants during the war. Veteran actor Vic Morrow, enjoying a mid-career boon, was in the scene too. He carried the children with pyro exploding all over. The low-flying overhead chopper capsized onto Moreau and the children, killing them instantly. Because of the inherent danger and the fact that it was a night shoot, Landis and others decided to hire non-union child performers. The production staff told Micah and Renee's parents to bite their tongue, and even the children's agents weren't informed about the shooting condition. The children were even hidden from a fire safety inspector. Wow. A disaster movie shouldn't also be the disaster. James Cameron's smash hit Titanic shattered box office records worldwide. Ticket sales aside, the production had to pour it on in order to sell the world's greatest nautical disaster. Clearly, the sinking scene was the most challenging feat. Many an actor and extra were injured sliding down the deck of the sinking behemoth, and all of that freezing cold water gave Kate Winslet pneumonia. Even though she refused to wear a wetsuit, it's rumored that Cameron convinced her not to quit the film. Almost drowning during another interior sinking scene might have been Winslet's last straw. Luckily, she wasn't part of the Halifax, Nova Scotia leg of the shoot. They had wrapped shooting and were celebrating. 80 dinner guests were drugged and tripped hard after someone spiked the seafood chowder with PCP, otherwise known as angel dust. It's one thing to have a crew member die while working on a film, but it's a whole other despicable thing when the producers exploit the tragedy as a selling feature. The 1969 film Shark, starring Burt Reynolds, was already walking a razor-sharp edge. Because we know sharks are dangerous and unpredictable. While shooting in Mexico in 1967, a stuntman, Jose Marco, was viciously attacked. Allegedly, Marco was busy fending off a bull shark's attack when a great white happened to break through open water shark nets and mauled him. He died hours later. At this time, the film's title was Kane, after Reynolds' character. But the producers wanted to capitalize on this tragedy, so they changed it to Shark, and use Marco's death to that same end. That is disgusting. Some films have trouble written all over them in big, bold letters. Fitzcarraldo was that film, but the rare making of documentary, Burden of Dreams, tells the real and even more disturbing story. Shooting in the rainforests of Peru was ambitious as it was crazy. You just don't subjugate the locals to the insane and insolent German actor Klaus Kinski. He upset everyone alike, especially the Amahuaca tribe, who were hired by Werner Herzog to be extras. The tribesmen threatened to kill Kinski. In fact, Herzog treated the 1,000 extras like garbage, so they attacked the production's encampment. There were many casualties, including a man being struck through the throat by a spear. And poisonous snakes were a daily danger. A crew member was bitten and had his foot amputated with a chainsaw. Inspired by Joseph Conrad's novel Hearts of Darkness, Apocalypse Now chronicles man's descent into madness. Francis Ford Coppola and company did go insane during the 238 days of filming. Martin Sheen was a last-minute replacement for Harvey Keitel as Willard, and promptly suffered a serious heart attack from his alcoholism and drug binging. It seemed that drugs and alcohol were a set-wide problem. Coppola grilled Dennis Hopper on how to coax a better performance from him. Hopper quipped, an ounce of cocaine. The shooting took place in the Philippines, but dictator Marco would commandeer attack choppers loaned to the production to fight real rebels, halting production at a moment's notice. The Playboy and Kurtz set were frequently battered by tropical storms, and the grossest was some overzealous props men who used real corpses instead of dummies. Brandon Lee should have been a huge star. The son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, Brandon was poised for great success. Brandon played the tragic hero of the 1994 cult classic The Crow, based on the graphic novel of the same name. Brandon chose to follow in his father's footsteps as a martial artist and actor, which is creepy because his father died young. Brandon played Eric Graven, a sensitive rock star who was murdered, along with his wife, by a ruthless gang. An electrician almost died on the first day of shooting, among other incidences. However, it is Brandon's accident that cast the longest shadow. The revolver actor Massey used in the fateful scene unintentionally had a live round chambered, killing Lee. And years later, Massey died of stomach cancer. No humans were harmed in the making of this movie. The most dangerous movie ever made was shelved until 1991 when Doghouse Films re-released Roar. The premise should be obvious, and Noah Marshall, producer of The Exorcist, thought it would be a good idea to work with 150 lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, and elephants. who were scripted to attack the cast visiting a wildlife preserve. There can only be one outcome in a situation like this. Marshall's then wife, Hendren, was severely bitten on the back of the head, and teenager Melanie Griffith quit for a while, stating that she didn't want to come out of this with half of a face. After she returned, a lion mauled her and she needed facial reconstructive surgery. Even Marshall's son, John, had his head engulfed by a lion for the longest 25 minutes of his life. And the winner for the most dangerous movie is quite a bomb. A nuclear bomb. The Conqueror, starring John Wayne as Genghis Khan, was filmed in the Utah desert south of the Nevada nuclear test site. Throughout the 50s, over 100 nuclear tests were carried out there. Production began in 1954 in the barren wastelands around St. George, Utah. The cast and crew worked in contaminated conditions for weeks. Of the 200 cast and crew who worked on the Conqueror, 92 would succumb to cancer-related illnesses. John Wayne died of stomach cancer in 1979. Susan Hayward, Wayne's love interest, died from brain cancer in 1975. Stranger still is that Howard Hughes was the producer, and he tried to buy up every copy of the film out of sheer guilt. At the end of the day, film work is a job. Is it worth a person risking their neck? Or are audiences to blame for our incessant need for entertainment? Or should we just shoot all risky scenes against a green screen? But that's a little too safe.